A Scorned Path. Surviving is a whole lot easier when your enemies are dead. It was Elchris, the machinist, who began hoarding the servitors, and Rexis, the handman, who slaughtered them at every turn. Two allies driven by opposing forces, one science and the unmaking of faith, the other rage and his relentless push to destroy. There had long been tension between the two, as Rexis had, more than once, slipped into the machinist's workshop to inflict himself on the servitors caged there. Fickrel the fanatic, the spiritual leader and one-time Archon priest, watched patiently as their rivalry grew. He saw strength in their ire. He saw fire and fury, but also more, a new path forward, one that could join their passions and drive them further, a whole stronger than its warring parts. Fickrel waited, biding time as tensions rose and threatened to splinter the Baron's loyalties. Only when Elchris could take no more, on a night when she caught the hangman prepared to slaughter her latest haul of lesser servitors, did Fickrel step in. Fickrel motioned to Elchris and said, "Bring me a servitor." As Rexis hissed with anticipation, she hesitated, but Fickrel was patient. "Where is your trust?" Elchris released the servitor from its bondage. Fickrel motioned the servitor closer, then turned to Elchris. "You have gathered many machinists, hundreds, maybe more. Our own supply, our life force fed by slaved mechanics." Elchris nodded to the servitor as it inched closer to the Archon's open arms, welcoming the once revered orb as one would a child. The other barons began to bark, a rhythmic, warrior's chant. "For all the value in your work, it is not enough to feed ourselves." Fickrel hugged the servitor. There was a tenderness to the embrace, a sorrow. "We must also starve our enemies as you were once starved." With a blur, Fickrel's lower arms unsheathed and triggered a pair of polished, sparking shock blades. As were we all. The servitor, still held with the clutches of the Archon's powerful upper arms, cried a shrill, digital retch, pain mixed with confusion as the blades carved its outer shell and plunged deep into the core of its systems. Ether hissed and sprayed. Fickrel released the machine's silent shell and it clanged lifeless to the ground. He turned to Elchris. "Do you see?" Elchris smiled. She was ever the brightest among them, though her focus could lose clarity when she became frenzied. The barons had long been trouble for the awoken and fallen of the reef, but that trouble had been limited to hit-and-run tactics. What Fickrel had just presented was a new way. Fickrel stepped to Rexis. "Do you see?" The brute barked in response. "Kill them all!" Fickrel laughed. "Not all, hangman. Just the ones we do not need." The barons cheered as Fickrel continued. "Every servitor, any servitor, bound to a house is now a target, until none remain but those upon whom we feed."